Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alexandra and I'm your webinar hostess, which means I'll be handling all of the Q&A. During this presentation, I've enabled the questions panel, which you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, but you may need to push the little plus sign or the arrow to expand the panel. This session is being recorded and will be made available to all attendees should you care to listen again or share it with colleagues. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Larry Goldman and Mark Singh, who are going to be presenting to you best practices in securing the monitoring system. Larry, take it away.
Thank you, Alex, and welcome to everyone in the latest installment of our Best Practices series for WhatsUp Gold. Today's topic, as Alex said, securing the network monitoring system. I'm Larry Goldman. You not likely to have heard me yet. This is my first Best Practice series, but my co-presenter, Mark Singh, should be very familiar to you if you've attended any of these. Mark is our Senior Solutions Engineer, and he's maybe a certified WhatsUp Gold genius. He's been doing WhatsUp Gold, working with it for a very long time, and I think whatever questions you have, he'll be able to answer, and certainly he's going to have a great depth of presentation. So thanks for joining us, Mark.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
All right. So so here we go. This wouldn't be a security presentation if we didn't start with a selection of chilling statistics. You know, you always have to kind of get into that because it's security, right? So you're probably on this call because you are increasingly worried about security, in particular for your applications, and you're not alone. I'm surprised this number isn't actually higher, you know, that Accenture didn't find it. It was, 90% of business leaders, because I think everyone should be super concerned, and that includes small business owners. Now, I know for WUG, we have, for WhatsUp Gold, we have really a share of customers that come from small business and organizations to mid-market, and then we have our enterprise customers. So that really expands it. But if you're a small organization and you think that you're going to be overlooked just because they never really occur in the news, then we know that that is not correct. At least a third of small businesses are impacted. So where are these coming from? Well, you may be surprised about this, but almost half of the breaches are insider threats. And I think it's interesting that they use the word unintentional here, because really, a lot of this is mistakes that are made, that are taken advantage of. The World Economic Forum just did, and all these stats, by the way, I just pulled them off yesterday from the internet. So they're all fresh, 2021, 2022, and 95% of cybersecurity breaches are caused by human error. So it's the things we're not doing. It's the configurations. It's being secure about who can access these applications. Those are all the things we're going to talk about today. What we're not here to talk about today are a couple things. We're not going to be talking about network traffic analysis. That's our NTA add-on for WhatsUp Gold is great, but it's not the subject around today. Nor are we going to speak about Flowmon. That's our other network traffic analysis product, which goes much deeper. It even has anomaly detection capabilities that can help you to understand if an intrusion is possibly occurring. It goes very deep, and it's actually quite complementary to the infrastructure monitoring capabilities of WhatsUp Gold. But while we're glad to dig into those at some other point, while we're certainly more than glad if you want to get in touch with us, like drop a note in the chat or in the questions, and we're glad to talk about those products. What we're really here to talk about is application hardening for WhatsUp Gold. We need to strengthen it against possible intrusions by minimizing the attack surface or the surface of vulnerability against those internal and external threats that we were just mentioning. So the good news, of course, is that WhatsUp Gold has a number of important features that we've built in over time that help you to configure right from the start and manage ongoing to maintain a secure deployment. So that's really where we're going. By my count, I think we offer roughly 45 different recommendations for how to harden WhatsUp Gold. And our hope here today is that many, or at least a few of these, are new to you and worth that steep price of admission. All right, there was no price for admission, but you know, should we get through this and Mark has covered everything and there's nothing new to you, you know, I'm going to throw a challenge out to you. This is an ongoing series, and so in the chat or even in the questions, if that's easier for you to find, if there's a best practice that you know you want to learn from and maybe feel that you don't have a strong enough command of, you know, please put that in there as we go along and let us know this fall what you would like to hear as part of this best practice series. So around the recommended security best practices that we offer, and again, quite a few, I think they fall into 6 rough buckets, and I'm just going to cover those and then turn it over to Mark to go deep. So at a high level, the first one to talk about is installation. So from the get-go, when you're installing this product, there are many things that we recommend, and this is just a sampling of them, right? Putting WhatsUp Gold on a dedicated server, you know, having the latest updates for your Windows operating system, your .NET framework, other software, keeping that up to date. It may seem obvious, but these are the things we're recommending, and it's kind of a check-off list, right? Having, when you create accounts during the installation, making sure they have strong passwords, enabling the HTTPS protocol, and using non-standard ports. These are all the kinds of things that we guide you through and talk about during the installation and in our knowledge base as well. What about the admin console? Well, in this case, things like making sure that you only have trusted users that can get in here. It's a very important console. You do not want most people to get there. Have you checked the digital signature, you know, from the progress certificate? Is it correct? Is it active? And you know, certainly limiting usage to the admin console going forward is a great recommendation. It doesn't log any user actions or enforce device group access rights. So you really don't want to be using this unless, say, you might be doing backup or restore operations. Part of our recommendation, now you may need to go into it, but you know, we highly recommend, you know, keeping people away from this and not using it as much as possible if you don't need to use it. In terms of the web user interface, certainly, you know, verifying that the web user interface, when accessed over HTTPS, is over a secure connection. Just making sure that is, and making sure that your users have completely updated web browsers for whatever security updates are required on those. Another category, account policies. Always important, right? And there's lots of controls within WhatsUp Gold. For example, you could make sure that a user can only open a single session at a time. You can put parameters around account lockout. After a certain number of tries, you know, they have to contact you. You know, obviously password security measures, maybe a length of password or passwords age out after a certain period of time, you know, and session timeout. That's a great one, right? They're not using it for 10 minutes. Okay, sorry, you have to log back in again, you know, but that's safety. And, you know, aligning that with any corporate policy you have, WhatsUp Gold allows you to do that. So, this is a big one, and I think Mark's probably going to be spending a lot of time on this, is the user groups and rights area. Certainly, we recommend making use of the out-of-the-box user groups that come with WhatsUp Gold, and assigning every user to a group, limiting the membership of the WUG administrators user group. It's very important. Knowing who's in there and limiting that will save you a lot of effort and grief and reduce your risk. Things like setting the home device group and setting access rights per device group. Those are all recommendations. There's so much around user groups and rights. I'm not even going to get into it very much, but that is an area that we cover well. And finally, things around authenticated users, both internally and externally. We have recommendations there. You know, in terms of we actually highly recommend that you use external authentication. But WhatsUp Gold provides several different ways to integrate your organization's user authentication system. And this, like Active Directory, LDAP, and OpenID Connect, are the 2 most popular ones we see. And we have built into WhatsUp Gold to be able to use those. So that said, I think I've covered the major areas, and there really is so much to talk about today. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Mark. Mark, I'm going to give you control of the screen.
All right, thank you, Larry. And let me go ahead and share a screen here. So I'm sharing a screen. You should be seeing a WhatsUp Gold interface. If you could confirm that for me.
Yes, I see it.
Yep.
Oh, very good. So just taking what Larry went over there, we're going to talk about some of the ways we could, secure the WhatsUp Gold application. I'm not going to go through an install process, but as Larry mentioned earlier, it starts with the install, right? Your system, you keep your system, you secure your system, obviously. But during the install process, WhatsUp Gold is going to ask you to create a number of accounts. Some are needed to run IIS. This web interface that you're looking at here runs on IIS. So it's going to give you an option for determining which ports you want to use other than the default port 80. However, you can use port 80, but you can certainly use other ports. It gives you the option to bind the two other ports, and then it also gives you the option to use HTTPS for the web configuration. And so with that, we're going to go into some of these configurations. If you're not familiar with the IIS setup, really, when WhatsUp Gold is done setting up, things like IIS and SQL in the back end, there's really no reason for, the end user to even go into those, whether SQL or IIS. I mean, everything is set up to run, without human interaction. However, if you ever need to go into IIS to see the WhatsUp Gold web interface, it would look like this, where you'll have your main system, and then under sites, you'll see the WhatsUp Gold folder. Specifically, we're talking about the bindings over here, over on the right. And this is where you'll have a default. Now I'm running HTTP on port 80. I left everything at default. And this is the HTTPS binding where we were talking about certificates and so forth. This is where you specify that. So that's one way you could start. You even have the ability to set it up to where it only forces SSL connection or HTTPS connections. So you have that option as well, and those are all set within IIS itself. As far as WhatsUp Gold is concerned, it's just going to take its cue from whatever the settings are in IIS, and then enforce whatever policies are in place that are coming directly from IIS. So that's the HTTPS side. You could log in with HTTPS, and that's one way we could start off with a secure experience. The second thing we want to look at, and Larry mentioned it early, are the users. So WhatsUp Gold comes with its own internal user database. So you can set up user accounts and give them a password. They could go in there, change their passwords. Rudimentary stuff, but it gives you the options as well to use things like Active Directory or OpenID. So using those accounts, we will just inherit those accounts, then they'll be able to log into WhatsUp Gold. And when they log into WhatsUp Gold, we can then get into user and user groups assignment. So here, for example, you have Jason. We know Jason is not an internal user. He's listed as an Active Directory user. And Jason has a home group. And in that home group, we have determined that it's going to start with the local, something called the local group instead of my name. It's just the name of a group. So starting with this part, this is where you could determine where these users are going to land. Maybe you don't want everyone logging in to see every device and every group. So we start with a home group. Now, by default, everyone is going to start with the My Network group. That is the sort of like the root folder showing you all devices and so forth. So everyone starts there. But if you needed to limit them, this is where you could start by limiting them to a specific home group, and they will see only devices that are under that particular group. even subgroups that are created under it. As long as that group is the start of that hierarchy, that's what they'll be able to see if you set their home group to a specific one of those groups under my network. So we have Active Directory in this case. We're using Active Directory, so we have inheriting that level of security, and then limiting what type of groups users have if they don't need access to everything. And then you heard mentioned earlier of single session policies as well as session timeout policies. Now, the session timeout policy inherits its settings from IIS. So if you do not wish to have WhatsUp Gold log you out automatically after a period, you can disable that for your user. So beyond this part, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cast, I'm not gonna change anything. Then we get into the advanced user rights assignment. Now here is where you'll see a bunch of, on the left, user groups, and on the right, a number of checkboxes. Now, people like WUG administrators and WUG admins, I think I created the WUG admins one as well, they have all rights. So if we were to, let me go into something that has full rights here so we could take a better look at this. So here again is where you could create an internal user and determine session policies. Now, for all user accounts, you will also have an account lockout policy as well as a password aging policy, password complexity policy. So you get to determine all of this, or you can leave them all unchecked. But this is where we're talking about securing WhatsUp Gold. This is where you could determine all of this. And in the user group assignment, let me, before we get there to group access rights, in the user group assignment, let's go ahead and look at this. This is where you could create brand new users or using the default ones. Now, I brought this up so that you could see it with all boxes unchecked, and you could really go through here and determine what level of access you want to give to different users. And so you can select or deselect or give them a sort of a hybrid between them. So when you look at user groups, when we create a new user and look at groups, you will see some default groups. A super user might have more rights, but a report viewer will have the ability just to view reports. So they're not able to make changes and so on those devices. So when you bring over these users, maybe from Active Directory, or you create your own internal WhatsUp Gold users, you associate them with a user group, and then they will inherit whatever rights and limitation these user groups have. Now, once they're logged in, then the next thing is configuring group access rights. Now, from here, you will see this option, but let me show you where this will really start making more sense. If we were to go back, if you're familiar with the WhatsUp Gold interface here, my network, I remember I was talking much about my network, that's the top level group. But any of these folders that you see here, this is what we mean by a group. And so if you right click any of these, you'll see an option here called device group access rights. So back in users, when we're talking about device group access rights, we're talking about these groups of devices. And so you can right click any of them and then choose device group access rights. And here is where you could determine which users you want to make adjustments for. Let me do one thing right quick in this. Let's go ahead and make sure that, okay, device group access rights is set here. So from here, when you determine what level of access people need for their specific groups, this is where you could check or deselect whatever rights they want. It could be read access, write access, or no access at all. You might have users in your organization that when they log in, they're not responsible for certain sets of devices or certain groups of devices. So when they log in, there's no need for them to see any of those. And so you could set it up to where they don't have any read access at all to the devices nor the groups. And then you'll have others who might need write access. They might need to be able to configure and delete and add and do all manners of things that are allowed in WhatsUp Gold to these devices. And so they will need read access and write access when they log into them. So you can determine what level of access users have when they log in, determine, when they log in, what home group do they land in, and then what devices do they have access to, what groups are they able to make changes to or not make changes to, or even be invisible to them. That level of control is given to you as the administrator, as the WhatsUp administrator, as you create these user groups. And once we're done there, we're pretty much, now into monitoring with WhatsUp Gold. So we have web access. We're using a specific user group, user directory like Active Directory or OpenID, and we have our account session policies, and all those boxes are checked. So now let's get to how do we monitor in a secure way. Now, WhatsUp Gold is able to monitor anything with an IP address using protocols like SNMP and WMI and so on. It could do a whole lot more than just simply ping devices and find out if they're online. So one of the first things we want to look at is what are the more secure protocols that are available that WhatsUp Gold can use. The credentials library is going to give you a cue or an idea of what type of protocols are available to be used. And starting with SNMP v3, when possible, would be the more secure option if you're going to be monitoring with SNMP. Now, for network monitoring, your switches, your routers, your wireless controllers, SNMP is the main protocol that WhatsUp Gold uses to monitor for bandwidth, traffic, and any number of objects available through the SNMP agents running on those devices. And so if given a choice for more secure connection using SNMP, what we want to do is go with SNMP v3. And as you will see with SNMP v3, obviously you have your username and so on, whereas with v2 and v1, SNMP is simply a community name, a password. In v3, it is encrypted, and as you can see, there will be authentication protocols as well as encryption protocols available, passwords, and so forth. So that is why v3 will be, in terms of security, the protocol or the credential of choice to use it when using SNMP. The other option you have also is Windows. So whenever you see Windows credentials is using WMI. WMI will get its security from Windows itself or Active Directory. So whatever user account you're using, those are Windows accounts. WMI will be able to use that, and it is encrypted. So that's another option you have now. There are things that you can monitor in Windows, like services and processes and so on, with SNMP, even disk utilization, memory utilization, so forth. You can monitor that with SNMP, but what Windows does not give you an option for SNMP v3. It is simply SNMP v2 that you'll have access to. So that, again, that one single password that is not encrypted is what SNMP on Windows gives you. On the other hand, if you're monitoring your Windows services and processes, you have the option to use SNMP. And I'll just jump in here to monitors. You'll notice for things like process monitor, you'll see an option for SNMP or WMI. This is Windows, so that SNMP option that you have there is not going to include SNMP v3. That is just the way things are right now with Windows operating systems. So WMI will be the protocol of choice there. Similarly, when you go to your service monitors, if we were to define a new service monitor, and that is shown here, you'll then see the option for either WMI or SNMP as well. So again, WMI would be the way to go there over SNMP. So those are two ways we can monitor devices. Most of our monitoring are going to be network switches and routers and so on, as well as Windows operating systems. And of course, Unix as well uses SNMP. Now, the other option that we have in terms of security is going to be in our log management setup. So Log management is one of our recent module add-ons that we've added. Um, we have the ability through passive monitoring to listen for Windows events and SNMP traps and syslogs. But log management is more for collecting and archiving logs long term. And of course, you can set up alerting for that. But I bring up log management because log management is the one module that does not use SQL in the back end. It comes with Elasticsearch database, or it uses Elasticsearch database. Now, you have the option, just as you do with SQL Express, to have WhatsUp Gold install a local copy of Elasticsearch. However, the recommended installation or configuration for this would be to install Elasticsearch on a remote system. And the reason for that is it will give you the option to use SSL. You'll see username and password for that link between WhatsUp Gold and log management. So if you're not using that and it's local, you don't have the option for SSL for those connections. So that is the recommended way. And you'll find during the install, if you are setting up log management as an add-on, it will also mention that as well, that the recommended option is that you use your own instance of Elasticsearch so that we could set up a secure connection to that database. And with that, we want to now turn it back over to Alex and to see if we have any questions. So Alex.
Great, thank you, Mark, and thanks, Larry. So we've got a number of questions that have been rolling in, so I'll go ahead and start. As a reminder, the questions panel is located on the right-hand side of your screen. You may need to push the arrow with the plus sign to expand the panel. Additionally, if you have ideas for other best practices that you would like to learn about, please go ahead and put those into the questions panel or into the chat, which is also on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, Mark. SNMP 3 is not supported for Cisco switch. Is that correct?
For Cisco switch, I don't believe that's correct at all. SNMP v3 is available for Cisco device. Now, I don't know, there might be certain models, but it's a common protocol used for Cisco switches.
Okay. And then the next question is, are there plans to enable SAML authentication so that MFA can be enabled, for example, Okta?
There are some plans. I don't know specifically if that's, you know, if everything that you mentioned there will be included, but there are plans for that. And we could probably find out more from our product management team specifically on that. But there are plans.
Great. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just reading through some of these questions here. All right, it seems like some of these questions are duplicates to the ones we've already asked, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up for today. I wanted to say thank you to Larry and thanks to Mark for that awesome presentation. Again, if you have additional topics you'd like to see, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reply directly to your GoToWebinar email and I will get that over to the team to plan. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.